Marie Adrienne Françoise de Noailles, Marquise de La Fayette, the daughter of Jean de Noailles and Henriette Anne Louise de Guerceau, married Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de La Fayette. They had 4 children: Henriette, Anastasie, Louise, Pauline du Motier, George Washington, Louis, Gilbert du Motier, and Marie Antoinette Virginie du Motier. She was a great-granddaughter of Françoise Charlotte d'Aubigne, niece of Madame de Maintenon. Early life. Adrienne was born and grew up in the Hôtel de Noailles, the family residence in Paris, where was also celebrated on the 11th of April 1774. Her arranged marriage with Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de La Fayette. The orphan Lafayette had inherited large estates that yielded an annual income of 150,000 livres. Her mother, concerned with the youth, kept them apart for a year while she managed the courtship. In 1776, the young couple had a daughter, Henriette. Lafayette went to visit his uncle, Emmanuel Marie-Louis de Noailles, ambassador to England. During a ball at Lord George Germain's, he met Lord Rawdon, met Sir Henry Clinton at the opera, and met Lord Shelburne at breakfast. He left to return to France, and then America. Adrienne was pregnant with Anastasie. The Duc de Noailles got Lafayette orders to report to Italy, but Lafayette left for Spain and America on the 26th of April 1777. In a letter to Adrienne, Lafayette wrote, "The 7th of June. You will admit, dear heart, that the occupation and the life I'm to have are very different from those which were in store for me in the futile journey to Italy. Defender of that liberty that I idolize, coming myself freer than anyone else to offer the services of a friend to that interesting republic, I bear with me only my sincerity and my good will, no ambition, no personal interest. In laboring for my own glory, I labor for the prosperous issue of their efforts. I hope on my account you will become a good American. It is a sentiment suited to virtuous hearts. The welfare of America is bound closely to the welfare of all humanity. She is to become the honored and safe asylum of liberty. Adieu. Darkness does not suffer me to continue longer, but if my fingers were to follow my heart, I should need no daylight to tell you how I suffer far away from you, and how I love you." Adrienne was to have 4 children in total, amongst whom George Washington de La Fayette was eldest son. The eldest child, Henriette, died aged 22 months. In 1778, Adrienne is reported to have met Voltaire at the home of the Duc de Choiseul. "I wish to make my obeisance to the wife of the hero of the New World. May I live long enough to salute in him the liberator of the old." From July 1779 to March 1780, Lafayette returned to France to present a plan for French support of the Americans. An army was dispatched under the Comte de Rochambeau. Lafayette drew 120,000 livres and gave Adrienne power of attorney. On the 6th of March 1780, Lafayette left for America. After the victory at the Siege of Yorktown, Lafayette returned to France. On the 22nd of January 1782, he was received at Versailles. French Revolution. In 1783, Lafayette bought a townhouse at 183 Rue de Bourbon for 200,000 livres. He and Adrienne were active in the Salon at the Hôtel de La Fayette, the headquarters of Americans in Paris, such as Benjamin Franklin, Mr. and Mrs. John Jay, and Mr. and Mrs. John Adams, who met every Monday, and dined in company with family, and the liberal nobility, such as Clermont Tonnerre, Madame de Staël, Morellet, and Marmontel. Adrienne took a dislike to the pessimistic Governor Morris, calling him an aristocrat. Lafayette joined the French abolitionist group Society of the Friends of the Blacks, which advocated the end of the slave trade and equal rights for free blacks. In 1783, in correspondence with Washington, he urged the emancipation of slaves, and to establish established them as farmer tenants. Although Washington demurred, Lafayette purchased land in the French colony of Cayenne to experiment with education and emancipation at his plantation La Belle Gabrielle. On 15 July 1789, he was acclaimed Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard. His moderate views were rejected by the Royalists, and he became marginalized with the rise of the Girondists and then Jacobin radicals, and the increasing polarization of politics. Adrien went with Lafayette to Chavignac in October 1791, after he lost the mayoral election. After war was declared on Austria on 20 April 1792, Lafayette left for command of the army at Metz. After returning to Paris to defend the king, he was then accused of treason, and sought to escape to the Dutch Republic, but was arrested on 19 August by the Prussians at Rochefort, Belgium, and imprisoned at Wesel and Magdeburg, Prussia. He was later transferred to the Austrians, and held at Olmütz. An escape attempt was unsuccessful. Imprisonment on 10 September 1792, she was held under house arrest at Chavignac. On 12 September 1792, she wrote M. Jacques-Pierre Brissot, "Monsieur, I believe you to be sincerely fanatic for liberty. It is a compliment I pay to very few people at this moment. I shall not examine whether that fanaticism, like religious fanaticism, does not generally defeat its own object. But I cannot persuade myself that one who has done so much for the emancipation of the Negroes can be an agent of tyranny. I believe that if you are impassioned by the ends which your party seeks, at least you will abhor the means it employs. I am sure that you esteem, I might almost say that you respect, M. de Lafayette as a sincere and courageous friend of liberty, even when you persecute him because his opinions are different from your own as to the means of establishing freedom in France, and supported by courage like his and by faithful adherence to his oaths, are contrary to the party in which you have enlisted and to your new revolution. I believe all this, and therefore apply to you, although disdaining addressing all others. If I'm mistaken, tell me so, and I shall have troubled you for the last time. But if I'm to be kept as a hostage, my captivity would be less hard to bear were I to choose Chavignac as my prison on parole, and on the responsibility of the municipality of my village. If you wish to serve me, you'll have the satisfaction of doing a good action by mitigating the fate of one who is unjustly persecuted and who, you well know, has neither the means nor the wish to injure. I consent to owe you that service." After March 1793, Adrienne met Jean-Baptiste Lacoste Fr. Jean-Baptiste Lacoste, a representative of the National Convention at Brieux, to whom she wrote, "I am informed, monsieur, that there is a movement afoot to imprison all former nobles, in connection with the treacherous behavior of Dumouriez. I come now to tell you that though I declared my readiness at all times to stand surety for Monsieur de La Fayette, I most certainly have no intention of doing so for his enemies. Furthermore, whether I live or die is a matter of supreme indifference to Monsieur Dumouriez. You would do far better to leave me undisturbed in my retirement. When I was dragged from it, the only result was to awaken sympathy for me and to revive the memory of a great many injustices. I ask to be left with my children in the only situation I can find tolerable so long as my husband is a prisoner of the enemies of France." Reign of Terror. In May 1794, during the Reign of Terror, she was transferred to La Force prison in Paris. Her mother, Catherine de Cossé-Brissac, Duchesse de Noailles, her mother, Henriette Anne Louise de Guerceau, Duchesse d'Argennes, and sister, Anne Jean-Baptiste Louise Vicomtesse d'Argennes, were guillotined on the 22nd of July 1794. She was transferred to the Collège du Plessis prison, then to a house on Rue des Amandiers, then to the Desnos house, Rue Notre-Dame-des-Champs. She was released on the 22nd of January 1795 due to the efforts of Governor Maurice, James Monroe, and Elizabeth Monroe, who visited Adrienne in jail. In April 1795, George was sent to America, studied at Harvard, and stayed with George Washington. Governor Maurice advanced her 100,000 livres of his own money. On the 1st of September 1795, Monroe issued Adrienne American passports for her and the Lafayette family, and she traveled to Lafayette's place of imprisonment. Prisoners of Olmutz. Adrienne traveled to Vienna where, on the 10th of October 1795, she met with the emperor. She obtained permission to join her husband. "I grant it to you, but as for his liberty, that would be impossible. My hands are tied. It is a complicated affair." On the 15th of October 1795, she joined her husband, along with Anastasie and Virginie, in the prison fortress of Olmutz. All of the money and baggage were confiscated. The confinement became a cause célèbre. A play about them was written, The Prisoners of Olmutz, or Conjugal Devotion. John Parrish, the United States consul in Hamburg, provided aid, but was unable to negotiate a release. On the 18th of September 1797, the family was released, under the terms of the Treaty of Campo Formio. Recovery. They recuperated at Lincoln, Holstein near her sister Madame de Maintenon, and aunt Madame de Tessay. At Mme de Tessay's Whitmold, Anastasie married just Charles de la Tour Maubourg, younger brother of another Olmutz detainee Charles Cécute de Fay de la Tour Maubourg, and Marie Victor de Fay, Marquise de la Tour Maubourg. In 1798, Georges returned from America. Adrienne helped Mme de Montague in her financial scheme to help the émigré. In 1799, they moved to Vernon, near Utrecht. Lafayette remained exiled, but Adrienne returned to France. Adrienne was active recovering properties in France, including from her mother's estate, La Grange. Her sister, Mme de Montague, settled at Fontenay-Far, Château de Fontenay. In 1799, with the fall of the Directory, she secured a passport for her husband's return to France. After Napoleon's plebiscite, on the 1st of March 1800, he restored Lafayette's citizenship and removed his name from the émigré list, along with the members of the Assemblée Nationale. Many of the returned exiles, and Charles James Fox came to visit at La Grange. They were about 200,000 livres in debt. Adrienne negotiated an indemnity for the seized Cayenne property. She recovered 500,000 francs in compensation of the confiscated Noailles property. She negotiated the sale of Brittany properties for 61,200 livres and monthly rents of 4,800 livres. James Monroe brought Congress's grant of 11,500 acres in the Ohio Territory, and secured a loan from Baring Brothers and Amp.Co to repay creditors, including Morris. In 1802, Georges de La Fayette married Émilie de Tracy, daughter of the Comte de Tracy. Georges entered the army, was wounded at the Battle of Mincio in 1800, and later was aide-de-camp to General Grouchy, and was with him at the Battle of Eylau 1807, where he gave up his horse after Grouchy's had been killed, at the risk of his own life. After that, he resigned his commission. On the 20th of April 1803, Virginie married Louis de Lasteyrie at La Grange. The son, Jules de Lasteyrie, married Olivia de Rohan-Chabot, and lived at the Château de La Grange-Blenheau for 54 years. Adrienne found out from a lacemaker, MLLE Paris, the burial place of her relatives and other victims of the terror. She was active with Mme de Montague in raising funds to build memorials at the Picpus Cemetery. illness and death. She was chronically ill after her incarcerations, suffering from stomach pains, blisters, sores, and abscesses. A dry Sotro stayed at La Grange, and Dr. L'Aubinas was on call from Paris. In 1807, during a trip to the Auvergne region, Adrienne became ill. She was delirious but recovered enough on Christmas Eve to gather the family around her bed. Her last words to Lafayette were, "Je suis tout à vous." Given the purchase of satin, Burton concludes that lead poisoning was the cause of death. She was buried at the Picpus Cemetery, after her death on the 24th of December 1807. Assessment. Her husband read to M. de la Tour Maubourg. There was also a refinement in the way she expressed herself, a loftiness of thought which astonished everyone. But what was admirable above all, was that tenderness of heart which she was constantly showing to her 6 children, to her sister, to her aunt, to M. de Tessé. She thought she was with them at Memphis, for by a miracle of feeling, her mind was never invariable fixed but where I was concerned. Descendants of Adrienne de La Fayette. Georges de La Fayette married Emily de Tracy, daughter of the Comte de Tracy. In 1802, they had 3 daughters and 2 sons. Natalie, who married Adolphe Perrier Maldilt, who married Maurice de Puzy; Clementine, who married Gustave Auguste Bonin de la Bonninière de Beaumont; Oscar Thomas Gilbert, Marquis de Lafayette, liberal politician; and Edmond. Virginie married Louis de Lasteyrie on the 20th of April 1803. They had 4 children: Pauline, who married Charles de Rémusat; Melanie, who married Francisque de Courcelles in 1831; Octavie, and the son, Adrien Jules de Lasteyrie, married Olivia de Rohan-Chabot, the daughter of the émigré Louis de Rohan, Vicomte de Chabot, and Lady Charlotte Fitzgerald, daughter of the 2nd Duke of Leinster. Melanie and Francisque had a daughter, Marie Henriette Hélène Martyr de Courcelles, who married Charles Adolphe Pinton de Chambrun, a lawyer from New York, at the Église de la Madeleine on 8 June 1859. Adrien Jules and Olivia had a son, Louis de Lasteyrie, who married Olivia Mills Goodlake. They had 2 children, Guy de Lasteyrie and Louis de Lasteyrie. Louise married Louise Chaudron-Courcelles in 1908. Anastasie de Lafayette married just Charles de Fay de la Tour Maubourg. They had 2 children, Célestine Louise Henriette de Fay de la Tour Maubourg and Jenny de Fay de la Tour Maubourg. His father was Claude Florimond de Fay, and his mother was Marie-Françoise Vacheron Bermont. His brother, Marie-Victor de Fay, Marquis de la Tour Maubourg, was a cavalry corps commander, survived the Russian campaign and was wounded at the Battle of Leipzig. His other brother, Charles Cécute Essayard de Fay de la Tour Maubourg, was a prisoner at Olmutz. The descendants include Queen Donna Parola Ruffo di Calabria, who married HRH Prince Albert, Prince of Liege, in Brussels, Belgique, on 2 July 1959. Later King Albert II of Belgium.